And with that note, I'd like now to give the floor to the director of the Outreach Division from the Department of Global Communications, who bears an experience of over 30 years in communications, so he could offer us his inputs and some closing remarks. Maher, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Thanos. Excellencies, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon, good evening, and good morning. I wish to begin by thanking you, Thanos, for the stewardship of this conference and for the excellent summary that you have just provided. Conferences such as this one are key to our ability to plan better for what we need to do next, and what community engagement activity the United Nations Library, the Dag Hammarskjöld Library here in New York, needs to prioritize for 2022 and beyond. I want to also thank all of you, especially the panelists and speakers who have taken part in the conference, as well as those who have joined as participants over the past 3 days from all over the world. While I could not join all sessions, I have heard from Thanos and from the ones I was able to tune into, about the many good experiences that have been shared and good lessons learned. While we are still not out of the woods from the pandemic, we are where we are today in containing the pandemic due to the collaboration across fields and borders through open science. Without this collaboration and sharing of relevant information in the early stages and throughout the past year and a half, it would not have been possible to develop multiple vaccines in a record time. Science and experience tells us that vaccines work, vaccines save lives, and certified vaccines are safe. However, what is still missing in today's response is equity in vaccine availability. The other challenge is present and persistent: vaccine hesitancy and the reluctance of wide sectors of the public in many countries where vaccines are available to get vaccinated. A few weeks ago, the daily average number of new cases in the United States went down to as low as about 3,000, 4,000 cases. The number from yesterday was 45,000, and most of those are in places where vaccinations are low. Misinformation about the vaccines, the value of masks, social distancing, conspiracy theories on some remedies continue to hamper our ability to contain the pandemic and are as much a threat to ending it as is the virus and the new variants themselves. Efforts to address climate change face similar challenges when faced with skeptics who deny that it is caused by human activity, or that measures to decarbonize the economy and our reliance on fossil fuels would make a difference. Open science provides these links and offers solutions that we all need to take seriously. The UNESCO Assistant Director General spoke of the need for scientific humanism and set the tone for a conference that highlighted the gaps in the scholarly communication cycle, especially for countries where scientific research is still in development. The conference stated the need for equity of access to scientific advancements. To leave no one behind, ideas and solutions were proposed on how the lessons learned can be linked to become improved actions in our response to climate actions. The Dag Hammarskjöld Library has asked each conference speaker and moderator to submit a written piece with the top 2 to 3 lessons learned on open science from the pandemic, which can inform climate actions. With the speakers and moderators' kind agreement, this document of collated lessons learned, where these eminent personalities from all over the world have contributed, will be released and distributed to registered conference attendees, as well as to climate action teams within and outside the United Nations system of organizations. Such is the urgency and the priority of climate change for humanity. While the Paris Agreement signed in 2015 provided a framework for a way forward, we know from recent reports and daily headlines that the world is not on track, and that COP26 in Glasgow in November of this year is a key opportunity to redouble efforts to put us back on that track. The Secretary General of the United Nations, Antonio Guterres, has prioritized climate change and called for the need to end our war on nature. Most relevant for us as a Department of Communications, and building on lessons we have learned in addressing misinformation and disinformation about COVID-19 vaccines, is the urgent need to communicate science better, widely, and in a sustainable scholarship cycle. As Professor Bolton stated in the keynote on day 2 yesterday, the journal, as it was devised, is now an anachronism for the way science and technology systems supporting it have evolved. As a communicator for over 30 years in the United Nations, I have learned that what appears simple and straightforward for one person is not necessarily as clear or relevant to another. People fear and often avoid what they do not understand or what appears to be complex. Numbers and data are key tools in science, but they do not evoke emotions and make a human connection. As children, we are told stories, and when we become parents, we tell stories to our children as a first tool of education. Our communication strategy as a department, and that of many UN agencies, builds on storytelling and making human connections, evoking emotions and encouraging empathy with a view to guiding future actions and commitments. We need to reverse the mistrust in science resulting from a public rhetoric fed by misinformation and disinformation. It is fatal. The UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, Madame Michelle Bachelet, recently said, everyone's right to share in scientific advances and benefits has been attacked in recent years, particularly in the context of climate change. In some circles, the issue of whether climate even exists or is caused by human activity is treated as a matter of personal belief rather than rigorous science. The deliberate introduction of doubt about clear factual evidence was catastrophic for the planet, is still catastrophic. As I mentioned earlier on, with the start of the pandemic, we recognized the need to address the growing danger of misinformation, disinformation, conspiracy theories around COVID-19. The dangers that these presented to people's lives were evident in the hundreds and thousands of people who died or caught the disease when they could have been saved. Millions of people have now paid the price with their lives. Hundreds of millions have caught the disease, were sickened by it, are still suffering. Some of them are still suffering from the impact of that. Economies were brought to a halt, and we are still under the shadow of the cloud of the pandemic. And there are two enemies that are facing us. One is the actual virus that is making people sick. And the second one is the virus of misinformation, what the Director General of WHO called the infodemic. So in response to that, we designed and launched a global campaign to flood the internet with science-based, facts-based information related to how to protect themselves, but also how to seek proper treatment. And then later on, as vaccines became available, the need to be vaccinated and the need for vaccine equity. We called it Verified. We launched a website called shareverified.com. We recruited 78,000 information volunteers. We provided them with information on a regular basis through email, and we create simplified human connecting stories of information and how people need to change behavior in how they share information. Changing behavior was key element in the Verified campaign. It was based on research. It was based on science that if you disrupt the moment that people have an emotional rush when they share something before they even read it, they can, if they introduce a little bit of thinking, critical thinking, they may not share that information. So we launched a campaign in June of last year called Take Care Before You Share. Another one in October called Pledge to Pause. Take a pause before you share anything. And then we wanted to focus, as vaccines became available, on the need for solidarity, the need to ensure that vaccines are available Nobody's safe until everyone is safe. It's called Only Together. We reached over 1 billion people in 2020. And then last month in June, we launched a second part of the Pledge to Pause, Take Care Before You Share, another spike moment on 30th June. We have already reached 500 million people with that campaign as well. All of these campaigns are meant not just to provide the verified information, but also to instill a change in behavior in how people share information. We have also conducted research through MIT and other universities that has actually shown the value of those campaigns in changing people's behavior in how they share information. And what applies to COVID applies to climate change, applies to hate speech, applies to other things that we see are ailing certain parts of the populations in the world. So in conclusion, I would like to thank all our colleagues in the Dag Hammarskjöld Library, the team who have put together this conference, the third such gathering, and have gathered more than 2,000 people from all over the world. I would like to also thank all colleagues in the Department of Global Communications who have supported this, colleagues in the Department of Economic and Social Affairs, DESA, in the United Nations Secretariat, who have been partners for the department in getting this conference up to here. Of course, all panelists, including colleagues from UNESCO and ESQA and moderators from ESQA and CERN who have joined us today and the last 2 days. Thank you, colleagues. Thank you all moderators and speakers. Thank you all people who have attended. Finally, as a follow-up action, the Dag Hammarskjöld Library will consult with the open science community globally in the coming months. And again, based on collaboration, we'll move forward to contribute to mainstreaming open science across the UN Secretariat and beyond, with the delivery of the 2020-2022 conference to focus on science communication and data stewardship for policymakers, academics, civil society, librarians, publishers, and early career leaders in the open access community. Thank you again, and hope to see you again in 2022.
One last word before we see you in a year. There is a survey where we will be asking your feedback about the conference. So the survey will be now released in the Teams Live Q&A. And with that, we bid you farewell. I want to wholeheartedly and really admire and thank the work that the UN team has done, especially their calmness in overcoming the so many technical difficulties that Microsoft Teams has entrusted upon us. Congratulations to the team. Thank you once again to speakers and moderators. And most of all, thank you very much to the audience from all over the world and for the lively discussions. We will continue this discussion very soon. And please take the survey and tell us your opinion about the conference. Bye.